Hello, and welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and Bradley, your sound is a little rough. That's my first note. I just wanted to jump right into that. Bradley's sound is a little rough. You want to tell us why?
Is it rough? Is it better?
It sounds fine. Sounds fine. I just want to throw this up there, just in case anyone's like, why does Bradley sound just a tiny bit weird? His room is empty. He's moving again.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. Well, once you take all the Funkos off the wall, it becomes a little echoey in here, and so that's why.
It's because you have approximately 100,000 million Funkos.
Yeah, and they dampen all the sound, and it's really nice for my neighbors, but, not for recording.
Why is it I feel like every time we go to start a new show, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I moved the first week after we started Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I had to record episode 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi sitting on the floor of my closet on my iPhone.
We just always have something going on during a new show, like whether it's moving during Kenobi or me going on a work trip for Andor. Like it's just We're just like, you know what? Why not? Let's just do more things.
Yeah, it's like every single fucking time we have like a 3 to 5 week period. We're just both sitting here on our asses doing nothing, and the second there's a show we have to cover, it's like, everything decides to happen. Like I just started a new job. Like as of recording the week that Bad Batch premiered, I had a new job, which is part of why I didn't stay up to watch it. Was that I now have to wake up at 6:45 in the morning to go to work.
I mean, that's your current excuse for why you didn't watch it.
That's my current excuse.
To be honest, you just forgot about it.
Wow, way to call me out on the show, Bradley. No, but
it's true, genuinely, I also forgot about it.
Genuinely, I did forget about it. And I don't want to be like, oh man, the show's so forgettable, yada, yada, yada. Because I remembered it the night before.
Right.
I was like, do I want to stay up and watch The Bad Batch? Because I'll be up till about 1 a.m. and then I have to get up at 6:45. And I was like, no, part of me being a responsible adult is picking which shows I actually want to stay up for. And I can wait a little bit for Bad Batch. Woke up the next morning, went to work. It was around lunchtime. I pulled my phone out and I saw people tweeting about The Bad Batch. I was like, oh, right, The Bad Batch aired. I completely forgot about that.
Right. Whoops. I mean, I even remember last time during season 1, like I would forget about it, but or I would know it's on in the morning, but because it's so short, I could watch it before I go to work or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to sit there and devote a full hour plus to watching this show. So it's okay to watch a little late, or if you forget to watch it, you know what I mean? So that's why I like doing that.
Yeah, and I might be able to even because I have an hour lunch break now, like in the future weeks there's one episode, I can literally just watch it on my lunch break. I can go in, because it used to be I had a 45 minutes, because I used to run in there, immediately start playing The Mandalorian. This is when Mandalorian season 1 was coming out. I would run in there and like watch The Mandalorian on my phone. Like I would start when break started and I would end when break ended.
Right.
But this one's a little bit easier. Do not ask me how I watch the Clone Wars season 7 when it airs. No one will like the very, very unsafe answer that I will give for how I watched that when it aired. But it was not a good idea, and that was a bad choice. I have gotten more responsible and better about waiting to watch my Star Wars shows. I waited because normally I'll watch a show and then I'll watch a show with my boyfriend when he's available. But he was available that night, so I was like, I'll just wait to watch it until I get home. And he watched it with me. So it was one of the few times that we watched a Star Wars show at the same time for the first time. He liked it. I had fun, but we'll get into my thoughts on the episode. Don't worry, I'm not just going to absolutely rip it to shreds. I thought it was fun.
Gotcha.
But Bradley, do you want to go ahead and take us? How are we doing Bad Batch? Because I know you have changed the structure again.
Right. So I went back and listened to our old episodes of Bad Batch, and I really liked the format we did, where we just kind of casually talked about the episode as we went. We tried to stay, mostly in order as we went through the episode, like, how it happens, where we casually talk about it. We don't have to go through every single, scene by scene, plot by plot, thing. We're
going to go through a lot of the bullet points.
Right.
FYI,
exactly.
Will not be as casual as Tales of the Jedi. Tales of the Jedi was like a final thought stretched out into 20 minutes.
Right. And this will be a little bit easier. I'm just not going to give like a summary of every scene before we go into it because it's just like, especially with a lot of this episode and the second episode, it's a lot of action. So it's really hard to dumb down, into little sentences like what's happening. It's just like they do this, So I think with this one, we'll do our best to just kind of break it down, but we'll keep it light. We don't want to have, I'm not going to give you a scene by scene description every single time.
Right. You can follow along with us in episode through the notes, but we're not going to give the recaps like we did with Obi-Wan Kenobi and or we'll probably
Right.
do
I'm
with
going to leave that.
Mandalorian. Which incidentally, if you were not aware, we are not going to be covering The Mandalorian. As it airs, we're going to be covering it as soon as we're done with Bad Batch.
Right. So
So
we'll finish this. And then once we are done with Bad Batch, you can look forward to our coverage of The Mandalorian season 3, which will be pretty much done by the time we start covering.
pretty much
it.
done
So,
by the time we get started.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Because by the time we have our Bad Batch retrospective episode,
yeah, I think
we'll
it's
be
finale
seven
week.
episodes behind.
Yeah, it's
Seven
like
or eight
finale
episodes
week. Yeah.
behind on The Mandalorian.
So,
Well, Bradley, I think we vamped long enough. You want to take us into Bad Batch episode 1, Spoils of War?
yep,
I
this
think Spoils of
episode,
War was the first one.
Spoils of War. That's correct. This episode, the Bad Batch plans a risky heist. And Charles, what is one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you did not?
Oh, it feels so good to have that question posed to me again. I really like the action of this episode. I'm not going to talk about it a lot because there's not much to analyze beyond, oh, it was cool when Hunter was hanging off the thing and you could see the
Yeah.
ground slowly moving away behind him. It's really going to be hard to pick a specific thing I disliked. Because the big thing I disliked about these two episodes, I kind of want to save that for episode 2. Episode 2 gets hit with it a lot worse than episode 1. So I'll actually put a pen in that. The thing I'm going to say related to episode 2 is going to be extend to both of them, but I really want to talk about it there. What about you, Bradley? One thing you liked and one thing you did not.
I liked that AZ is back. I love that. Great little droid. I just
Love
wish
that
he would.
they've put him to work like serving drinks at Sid's.
Yeah, I like that he's back. I don't like in the capacity that he's back. I kind of feel like he works better if he were to just kind of be an unofficial member of the Bad Batch. Honestly, I think that would serve the show a little bit better because I feel like that's the one thing the show is missing, which is their droid companion, right? And that's something
We'll
that
get to
everything has. I didn't like the super quick screen time that Feed Genoa has.
Feed Genoa.
Genoa. I feel like I know what they're doing, and I just wanted more of her, I guess. I feel like it was just a little too quick of a introduction to have her in this. If you were going to do it that quick, I feel like it should have been more of like a hollow phone call or something rather than her physically being there like for 3 seconds of the scene. Like, so I don't know. That's just something I didn't like. I wish they would have done more of that, but that's like being nitpicky. That's not like a super detriment to the episode.
Yeah, it's one of those things like it feels like she's gonna be important, but we don't know how important. So the scene is weirdly fast now. But when we go back, I'll rewatch it. I'll
Right.
marathon the whole season, and that scene might make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I guess I don't have to wait for you to give me a summary, huh? I guess
we just kind of go right into it.
Launch right into it. So I saw the first scene like months ago.
Yeah, you didn't mention. You said you saw the whole crab scene.
The whole crab scene is the scene they showed us at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim.
Oh, okay, interesting. I wonder why. Like just because
it's the opening scene. It's a really beautiful scene, beautifully animated. Water's one of the hardest things to animate. So when they're animating them, running through the surf, that had to take a lot of work.
I was gonna say because we're so as a culture, we're so obsessed with The Way of Water right now and how it looks on screen. So
fuck off. Have you seen that movie?
Fuck no. I'm not gonna see that movie until it's on Disney Plus. I will not be wasting my money. I'm sorry. I already spend $100 a year to have Disney Plus. I'm not about to fucking spend $25+ to go see it in the theater because the ticket sales are way more expensive only because it's an IMAX. You know what I mean? Like I'm not about to do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
For a movie that's just gonna retread.
For once, Bradley and I are in agreement with each other. I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it when it comes to Disney Plus,
Absolutely,
and
sure.
I can watch it. Oh, it looks so pretty on the theater.
I don't
It's an
care.
experience in the theater. I don't care. I don't care. The last one was a fishbowl movie, and I learned my lesson with it.
Yeah.
A fishbowl movie being the term that I have for a movie that is very pretty and that you can put on in the background with the sound off.
Mm.
Effectively a fishbowl. And I saw the trailer and I'm like, this seems like another fishbowl movie. Now I could be wrong, and it could be this deep and epic like exploration of the condition of being alive and imperialism and all of this stuff. I don't know that, and I don't care, and I will find out when it comes to Disney Plus.
Yeah, I'm just like not here for like another white savior movie. I just don't care. Like,
Oh Lord.
you know what I mean? Like, I just
Yeah,
don't
the
care.
last one was like, oh Christ, not this again. I have concerns, and again, I know nothing about the plot,
Right.
but I have concerns that the next one's just that this current one's just going to be more of that. And I'm
More
like,
of the
I don't
same.
care. I'll just go watch Dances with Wolves.
Right.
It's fine. I'll watch Pocahontas. It's not a great movie in my opinion,
Right.
but it's there and I can watch it.
I mean, my problem is that if not, if Avatar 2 was the actual plot of Pocahontas 2, then I would be totally down to see this fucking movie. I mean, because for you out there,
Isn't
if you
that
guys
the
want to
one?
watch it, if you want to go watch it, I think it's on Disney Plus. You can go watch Pocahontas 2. It's great. It's when she goes to England, and it's awesome because she thinks that John Smith is dead, so she starts hooking up with another John Smith,
Isn't
and
that the
then
John
it's
Smith that
great.
she actually marries
Yes. Well, so
in
what
history?
yeah, because what happens is she thinks John Smith is dead, so she starts dating new John Smith, and then she marries new John Smith, and then old John Smith is like, oh, just kidding, I'm not actually dead. And then she's like, oh, well, sorry, I'm already married to this one. And that's literally the plot, and it's amazing. And it's like, I don't know
Wow.
historically if that's correct, but it's hilarious and animated.
It's been a while since we've had a good completely tangent the fuck off topic. And we
What are you
did it
talking
in
about?
my
This is
second
totally
note.
relevant to Bad Batch.
Oh Christ. So I'm gonna make some observations here on what I noticed because I was sort of keeping an eye. I was like, let's keep an eye on these skin tones. And I know that the whitewashing is like deeper than the skin tone. It's in the like baked into the design of the character. However, I was just like, well, they said they did a little darkening. Let's see if they actually did it. My impression when I watched this first scene, because this one's pretty well lit, is that from when I watched it, Omega did look a little bit darker on the HD TV screen.
Right.
When I watched it on my computer, she looked pretty white.
Hmm.
So maybe an issue of screen, whether or not she looks like she's had her skin darkened up a little bit to more closely match Tamara Morrison.
Right.
Tech to me looks just as bad. Tech is easily the worst offender. It's a shame because he's my favorite character in these episodes.
Hmm.
But I'm like, easily this man is the worst offender in terms of his skin tone being way lighter than it should be. There's a couple of shots later on. There's a shot of Wrecker at the end, the way he's lit when he's standing in the shuttle at the end of episode 2. That to me, I was like, do that lighting, because that
Hmm.
worked really well. That looked a lot like the clones from the movies. But watching this opening scene, I was like, yeah, I could see where you maybe tried to darken Omega's skin tone a little bit, but it only really showed up on my HD TV. And I remember watching it at SWCA and noting that they looked a little darker. So I guess it depends on what device you're using, which is not
Right.
great. But that was my observation on, I don't know why tech just looks worse to me. Maybe I'm noticing it more now than I was in the first season.
Yeah, it's you know how sometimes you don't notice things unless somebody points it out. So it's kind
Somebody
of one of
points
those
it
things.
out.
Right.
And then it's like,
Um,
oh,
you're like, I can see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
boy's a little melanin deficient there.
Mhm.
Yikes. The music, however, is still good.
You and this music.
I love this fucking music.
You do, yeah.
Kevin Kiner is so fucking good at what he does. He did the music for Clone Wars. He does the music for Rebels. He does the music for Extra History on YouTube. He's so good. I love him, and I love the music.
Well, I love the crabs.
You
I
love
like
of
I
course,
love the crab design. There
of
you go. I
course, you
think they're
love the
fun.
crabs.
No, actually, I think they were really cool. I like it because they're that very colorful. They almost reminded me of the crab from Moana. The character from Moana. He's like a giant crab, and he's like purples and
Tamatoa,
blues. That's right.
the one
Um,
voiced by Jermaine Clemens, I think voices him.
okay, well, thank God we're not a Disney podcast.
We're
But
technically we are a Disney podcast. Disney will never hire
true,
me,
true, true,
but
true.
technically we are a Disney podcast.
But yeah, thank God we don't go through like the Disney movies. Can you imagine if somebody like did that? Like, I mean, I'm sure there is a
Christ.
podcast out there that
I'm
does
sure
that, but
there's somebody who watches through the Disney movies.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
However, I've been abundantly clear that if Bradley and I ever decide for some reason we want to do a limited series podcast that is not Star Wars, going to do a Teen Wolf podcast.
And every day it seems more fleeting because I'm like, honestly, aside from like Teen Wolf porn and fan fiction, I really don't care about Teen Wolf anymore. Like it's that stuff still gets me sometimes, if I see it on Twitter once in a while, but like I otherwise like this movie.
I thought you deleted Twitter.
I deleted my personal Twitter. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So you kept the more used Twitter account.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody does that. I mean, I'm not gonna delete my not personal Twitter. Because how else am I supposed to look at porn? Like, what am I, a savage? I'm not gonna order it online. Like,
I'm not gonna pay for that.
I'm not gonna pay for it. Oh God. Anyway, another tangent Bad Batch loves to bring us on. I think this is gonna be. I think Bad Batch this season we're gonna be like Tangent City because unless they do more than crabs on this, we're not gonna get very far on this.
Anyway, you should, if you are financially able to, you should support your favorite OnlyFans creators and sex workers because
absolutely,
God knows they need the money if you can financially do it. We can't, so I use Twitter.
Exactly.
I don't know how the fuck the crabs got us on.
You know what?
We're really earning that E for explicit podcast label.
And I feel bad because sometimes we don't earn it, and so we need to. And then this is our opportunity.
Truly need to. Oh Christ, we earned it with Castle. Oh, and Castle Sex Toy will come back this episode.
That's right, which is great. I'm excited to talk about it. But
I do have to ask though, before we even get to Castle Sex Toy, where's Gonky?
Yeah, see this.
Where the fuck is Gonky?
This is probably a great segue into the droid talk because unless you have anything else for the beach,
I don't. My question is, where the fuck is Gonky?
Okay,
because Gonky's not in any of the Marauder scenes.
Yeah,
AZI has been reduced to basically a cameo in these 2 episodes.
Yeah, he's a waiter now.
I had thought that AZI is a medical droid, so like maybe next episode we'll see him treating Tech's leg, but like Gonky's literally not there in any of these first 2 episodes.
And I'm wondering, like, I feel like, does every ship have a Gonky? Like, or is this just like they just happen to have?
They just happened to have a Gonk droid.
Okay.
And
yeah, that seems weird.
No, Bradley, not every ship has a Gonk droid. Only the best ships have Gonk droid, which is my segue to encourage people to listen to For Light and Dice, a Star Wars High Republic era TTRPG podcast, where we have a Gonk droid. His name is Gonk.
Clever.
Gonk.
Gonky is at least a little more clever. It's got the E in it. But
wait, you think Gonky has an E in it?
No, I mean like the sound E, like it has at least.
E is right. Oh my God, we have to move on. Jesus Christ, Jesus, Lord in heaven, we are.
Back to AZ. So I just watched the finale of season 1, and then I watched this one, and I'm like, I was like confused when I was watching this because I was like, did they recover his body? But then I went back and rewatched it again, and I was like, oh yeah, Crosshair saves him or something. Like he literally like grapples him and like pulls him back up to save AZ and Omega or whatever. And I was like, this is good because I thought AZ just like randomly appeared in this episode. I was like, are they just like randomly writing him back in like he's not dead or something? But
nope, he's
I was
alive.
Confused. Yeah,
he's super alive.
I like that he's back. However, like I said, my complaint was, how is he not a permanent member of the team? But you know what I mean? Like he just needs to go on the adventures with them. He just needs to be there.
You just want more AZI. And yeah, even if he's like on the ship and his thing was like to patch them up for medical things, that would make sense.
Right.
But I do feel like they sort of reduced him to a joke here.
Yeah, it's
like he even introduces himself. I am AZI. Like, yeah, we know.
We know
I've heard some people say that maybe like, oh, it's supposed to be implying that he's
rebooted.
He's rebooted, or he has some memory loss or something. But that's an extrapolation from very quick thing. We meet new character Fee Genoa. Do we want to talk about who's playing Fee Genoa?
Voiced by the lovely Wanda Wanda Skies or Sykes. I'm
Wanda
sorry.
Sykes. Wanda
I
Sykes.
That's autocorrect for you people. I wrote down I wrote down Sykes and it just says Sky next to her name, so that's why I messed up. Yes, Wanda Sykes, love her. She's done voice work for like Ice Age. She was in the show Blackish. She's been on multiple movies and shows. I most recently saw her in A Bad Mom's Christmas, which I definitely recommend if you want to watch Christmas movies.
I
She's
most
great in that.
recently saw her in Q Force,
Oh, okay.
which I do actually honestly recommend. Q Force marketed really badly, shockingly good show.
Interesting.
Shockingly good show.
You know, we're not really ones to promote gay content on this show, but
Correct. It's not like it's in the name or anything. But she's a major comedy powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also a lesbian,
Which makes her even better.
mm-hmm.
Love
So
that.
we love that. I know there was some controversy over her character flirting with Tech. I don't care, and also shut up.
I actually kind of find it funny that she was flirting with Tech, only because it's like, I guess there's two jokes there. So the one is that he's the nerdy one or something. So it's like, why would she be attracted to him? The second joke is they all look the same because they're clones. So she singles him out as the most attractive of all of them, even
Well, her
though
thing is
he's
they
not,
look different, and yeah, she picks like the nerdiest one.
Yeah,
She
I just
doesn't
find it
pick
funny.
like Hunter or
Which would theoretically
Echo.
be the
No,
most
she picks like
attractive.
the
Right.
biggest nerd. No, there's some controversy from like people are upset that somebody flirted with Tech, and people are upset that it was Wanda Sykes' first appearance and it was flirting with a man. And I'm like,
Guys,
yeah, I
just
think
because she's
both
a
of.
lesbian in real life doesn't mean she has to be a lesbian character. Like,
I mean, it would be nice if the character was like
yeah, but
bisexual or something. That would be awesome. I don't know if I'm prepared to get super outraged about all of that. That's just me personally.
right, because well, one, she was barely on screen, so
Yeah,
what
she's
little
super not there. We
information
don't
we've
know anything
gotten,
about
yeah,
her.
she all we know is that she thinks that Tech is attractive. We don't know that she doesn't think other people are attractive or that she is interested in other people. Like, so we have no idea. So like, this
We know
like we'll just leave
nothing.
it alone.
We know nothing. And Wanda is eating this role up. Like, even just her little bit of screen time, she makes me
Right.
so likable, but also kind of mysterious and a little bit rough.
Yeah.
Like clearly somebody who's able to throw Sid isms at Sid, which
And
I
I
think
like
is neat.
and I like that they're bringing in the pirate character kind of into this, where I also feel like this could have just been Hondo Onaka if you just really wanted to have this character in there. So one, I like that they're doing a new character, but two, I feel like, where is Hondo? Why isn't he in this show? Because it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, where is Hondo Onaka?
Why is he not? Well, one, why is he not this character? Not that I don't love Wanda Sykes in this role. I just, doesn't it feel like that would be easier for them to just kind of
I
throw
wonder
him
if
into
there's
this role?
something going on with Fee Genoa that's it's going to make sense why they didn't just use Hondo Onaka, because he
Maybe, yeah.
fulfills a very specific role, and it seems like she's more authoritative than Hondo Onaka is. And yes, it is important for me to say his full name every time.
I would really love them to do maybe a pirates lord's storyline or something, like she's the pirate queen and then like they all follow her or something like that. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
Yeah, kind of like a Talon Card type character. You
Yeah,
don't know
why
who
not?
that is.
I have no idea what that is, but I'm gonna agree
You're
with you because I
disagreeing
feel
with
like
me.
that's, yeah, I'm sure somebody knows what that is.
Returning cast members: D. Bradley Baker as the Bad Batch and Captain Wilco. Michelle Lang is back as Omega. Rhea Perlman is back as Sid, and Ben Diskin is back as AZI3 in this episode. So we'll just blow past them. That's great. Love to see them back. Was Sid's helmet? Did Sid have a Mandalorian helmet in the first season?
I don't know if she had it in the first season, but I definitely saw it in the background.
I
So
saw it
was
this
like,
time, and then I saw the Clone Trooper helmet. She has a Phase 2 Clone Trooper helmet now.
interesting. So maybe she's just collecting things from their missions or something. I don't know.
It's just a tiny little thing I noted. If it seems like we're spending a lot of time in this first half of the first episode, just because where all the stuff I want to talk about happens.
Nice.
Speaking of stuff I want to talk about, we see the return of Castle Sex Toy,
Yes,
as our friends from the Divas refer to it. Castle Sex Toy, ribbed for Sidious's pleasure. That is a direct quote from Chris in
Okay,
their
well,
Discord.
I'm not stealing any more jokes from them. That's disgusting.
I'm stealing all the what you don't want. You don't want me to bring over the milk bottle joke. You don't need to know, nor should you want to know what that joke is. Bradley's desperately trying to work out in his brain
No.
whether or not what the hell the milk bottle joke could be. Go listen to Dark Side Divas if you desperately want to know. I'm not going to bring it up on this show. I have self-respect. Yeah, we see Castle Sereno is going to be the site of our heist, such as it is. Although it's not really much of a heist, it's more of we're going to sneak in and grab stuff and get out. There's
Mhm.
no real heist rules because there's no real plan.
I was noting that in the episode because I was like, is it really a heist? Well, I don't know. I guess it technically is a heist, but it's not because there's no plan. They're just like, we're going to infiltrate his castle and get a war chest. But it's like, what? That's so generic. They don't tell you anything. They're just
Here
like,
is the
that's all it is.
difference. Here is the difference between a burglary and a heist. Sexiness. A
Okay.
heist is sexy. There's a plan, there's
Hmm.
gadget, there's a team with conflicting personalities, don't get along but have to learn to work together to complete the job. A burglary is we go into a place and we steal some things,
Which is exactly what we did this episode.
which is exactly what we did in this episode.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a burglary. It's not a heist.
Right.
It's a difference between like someone flirting with you on Grindr and being seduced by a really suave French man, right?
Why you gotta be friends?
Because the French accent is sexy, Bradley. It's that extra to the situation. So they find out that the Empire is like taking the war chest away from Dooku's castle, which I have two issues with. Issue number one is I hesitate to call this the war chest because I don't know whether or not this was the majority of the funds they were actually using. It seems like there's a lot more complicated banking stuff going on, and it's not just like Dooku had a bunch of valuables and was giving them away to Space Amazon or whatever so he could get his Space Amazon army. But also, like, it has been several months since the end of the war.
Right.
Why is this Empire just now getting to pulling all of Dooku's stuff out?
Yeah, because like, wouldn't they do it literally either during or after the bombardment of the city? That
Yeah,
would have
you would
made
do it. I figure
immediately.
like when the war ends, like literally the first thing you would do is send somebody to go get the stuff out of that. If you're the
Right.
Republic, you might return it to the people it came from. Whereas the Empire is like, no, we're just going to take it. But like, I do figure that would be one of the first things. And they don't send a lot of guys. They send like one battalion of troops and 3 transports to go haul it off.
Yeah, it didn't
And
seem
I'm like,
very important. Yeah.
why did we not do this before? And it's like, oh, it's sort of implied that they were making several trips, but in that case, it's like, well, why don't you just? Is this like the last trip?
Right.
Is this like the last one? And so the guard is reduced. The writing doesn't do a very good job of explaining why it's absolutely necessary that we go after the war chest right now, and also why the Empire has taken so long to do it. Okay, so I want to bring up my biggest problem with these episodes. It's not the thing that I just liked because I want to talk about it in more depth. Is
Mhm.
that it feels like, to me, having gone back and rewatched the first season and having listened to the coverage on Jedi and Jedi, who brought this point up, that the story arcs from season 1, i.e., Hunter is hesitant to do anything, Echo thinks they should be doing more, Omega feels like she's a burden to the team. None of these were really adequately resolved by the final few episodes of season 1, so it kind of feels like we're doing them again.
I see. Yeah.
Each season of TV normally feels like it has like different arcs for the characters. This one feels like we didn't bother to resolve these particular arcs in season 1, so we're now doing them again.
We're
So
stuck.
when Echo was having his whole thing of we should be doing more, yada yada yada, I literally turned to my boyfriend and I went, this is just the same storyline from season 1. This is the same thing.
Yeah.
They never resolved it, and we're just doing more of it. I don't know. That annoyed me with what should have been the heart of these episodes. It just feels like, oh, we're recycling this again.
Yeah, I almost wish that this episode had introduced a new storyline or concept for our Bad Batch, right? Like, I feel like the first season, you're right, was definitely like, oh, here's our tropes that we all have. And then by the end of the season, we're done with these tropes. Like, we're officially free people, essentially, and we can go fuck off in space and do whatever we want in season 2. Season 2, they're still like trying to stay away from the Empire. Like, I almost wish like they would just go fuck off to outer rim space and do other adventures that have nothing to do with the Empire, honestly, because it's kind of like they need a reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like making up weird stuff and I just want to be a writer on this fucking show and not actually do any work. But I think like, yeah, Like, let's just have them go do something else. Like, I don't know, like their reason why they need to escape the Empire is like the only way to do that is to go to outer rim space or go to unknown space and have a new adventures or something.
Yeah, and this is the first we're hearing of like any sort of plan for them to disappear.
Right.
Is that they talk about, oh, you could disappear if you get this war chest, and I'm like, wait, where did that come from? Like, is that a new thing? Like, is that the thing we want to do? Is we're going to have to decide whether or not we want to completely disappear, whether or not we want to help the what is probably a nascent rebellion that's growing, although we know that the rebellion itself won't really take form. But like, I don't know. It's a strange combination of they're retreading all the same character arcs, like continuing on the same ones that they didn't really resolve, while
Right.
at the same time they're also adding some weird new components to it that sort of feel like I'm like, oh, when did we make the change? Like it's not abundantly clear. I don't know. It's a little confusing to me. What isn't confusing is that the Empire bombed the shit out of Sereno, which is extremely fucked.
I was gonna say they we as we saw in the finale of season one, they love doing that.
Yeah, and they even bring it up. It's just like Camino. I think it's interesting because they came in and took over Raxus, which is the capital of the Separatist homeworld,
Mm-hmm.
but or the capital of the Separatist alliance. But for Sereno, something happened that the Empire. I don't know whether or not the Empire was like tried to come in and take in Sereno, and Sereno was just too independent, or whether or not they were like, you know what, you guys harbored Count Dooku, so we're just gonna bomb the shit out of you.
Yeah, I wonder
Either
if
way,
it's
it's
like
extreme fucked.
I wonder if it was like maybe this is I mean I'm giving them way too much credit, but what if this is like a political move, right? To be like he was essentially the leader of the separatists, so the only way to punish the separatists was to destroy his home planet slash city or whatever, and then that would placate the rest of the republic to be or the rest of the empire now to be like, oh yay, you guys did a good thing by hurting the bad people, like that
It's
seems of what it is.
possible. We also see in Andor that a better written show that the Emperor, the way he governs, is it's very impulsive and very like everything is geared toward making the Emperor feel good about things, so he won't pay attention to you. And it could be this is another one like the taking out of Anton Krieger, where it was like, no, this is just about making the Emperor forget about Aldani. It's
Yeah, I
possible
feel
they just
that.
bombed Sereno for that reason. They do roll up in so the Empire rolls up in the transports from Rebels. We've seen those transports before. They were in Star Wars Rebels.
Right.
I love whenever Bad Batch is a prequel to Rebels. I don't really care when it's a sequel to Clone Wars, but I love when it's a prequel to Rebels. That's just me personally. Speaking of things that are kind of new, one, they put all the clones next to each other in their new armor, the Bad Batch. I do really like the new armor.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I,
like the little bits of teal and orange that they have kind of like mixed in instead of the red.
it's more colorful.
Yeah.
I can tell them apart a little bit better at a glance.
I think that was the problem with the first kind of set of armor. It was they were too similar. And that's fine, when they're all, I guess, clones in the army, but like when they're supposed to be this ragtag group of not rebels, but like just separate, for us, they need to be a little bit more standout-ish looking. So it is nice.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. It is nice for them to have some more individuality because it keeps up with the theme of their growing individuality
Right.
as they move away. And then you notice we only see one clone trooper face, I think, which is Captain Wilco at the end of the episode.
Right.
So the others, they're really stripping the humanity out of them.
I was kind of mad about Captain Wilco too because he didn't have like a fun color. Like he was just,
Grayish.
yeah, I was like, what the hell?
Well, here's the interesting thing because we're going to see Cody later on in this
Right.
season. That's not a spoiler. It's all over the trailers. You know Cody's going to be in this.
Okay.
Cody's armor is the same armor.
Right.
So
So I'm like, why?
it seems like the Empire has done away with the unique clone,
Mm,
every clone commander being able to have their own unique armor.
right.
Where we knew who was Wolf, we knew who was Cody, we knew who was Rex just by looking at their armor. And the Empire's doing away with that months later. They're having the commanders wear uniform gray, and it's continuing to strip them down to where we'll eventually get with the stormtroopers, to where you can tell when a stormtrooper is an officer, but you
They're
can't tell
not
that
that
they're
much
people and they're
different.
not
Yeah.
that individual.
Right. Okay. I feel that.
We do see that Dooku did an imperialism where he was plundering treasure from other worlds and using it to fund the war effort. which is certainly one way to balance your spreadsheets, but also bad Dooku. You should not have done that.
Well,
I do like that retroactively was a thing that got brought up, is that the Separatists would pillage these worlds and use it to fund their war effort, or at least
right,
Dooku would, because
right.
it does show. We'll have an indication later on of just how far Dooku's fallen, or as he fell over the
Mhm.
course of his life, going from a pretty noble dude to just a bad person who did evil things. I will note the Empire is still using V-Wings. We don't have TIE fighters yet. Although the V-Wings do look a little grayer and more boring, which again, the Empire's stripping the color out of things.
They love doing that.
Also tracks with Lords of the Sith, the novel Lords of the Sith, that they continue to. They're using V-Wings 5 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. Wilco is a completely new clone. I looked him up. He hadn't appeared in anything else before that I could find. He's not as sexy as Hauser.
Yeah, I was like, it's like
I was like,
whatever.
yeah, there's a clone.
He's there.
We do get the Imperial klaxon that you love so much when the V-Wings blow up.
Do love that.
I also want to note that the Bad Batch is still using stuns on clones. They're still using the stun blasts.
Okay, I was gonna bring that up in the second episode, but you brought it up now, so I'll just talk
I
about it
brought it
now.
up now because they do it now.
That's fine. I hate that because it's so annoying watching this episode and the second episode where the Bad Batch is going around, stunning all the clones, but then turns around and destroys a ship here that literally kills the pilot. So they're pulling in Ezra, where they're just having them kill the pilots, but pilots don't matter because you don't see them die in the explosion. So that's fine. You know what I mean? But you
We'll
see them getting shot. So that's totally not acceptable.
we'll get to it, that there's some inconsistency in the second episode with Wrecker and how
Yeah.
he chooses to use his cannon when he has it, that could have been explored but wasn't. But yeah, they are still trying to use the stun blast wherever possible. And I'm like, guys, it's been months. You can just shoot them.
Yeah. It's like, come on. Like
When you
we're over
thought the
this.
clones could be like saved and broken out of their conditioning, it was one thing to use the stun blast. You can shoot them. It's okay.
Yeah. I'm kind of over it too.
I think it says a little bit about the clones, is like, or the Bad Batch and their relationship to the clones, that they're still not letting go of the idea that these are their brothers. We don't want to kill them. They are
Right.
literally shooting at you to try to murder you.
Yeah.
You
It's
are
kind of
willing.
sad.
You are willing to do this in very extreme situations. And again, I wish we had time to explore these things.
Yeah. They don't
I
really
wish these
go too
episodes
much
were
into
written
it.
in such a way that we could explore some of these themes, but we don't, because we're dealing with a very surface level show here. Rest in peace to Dooku's office. It was a cool fucking office. It's in ruins now.
Well, that's what happens when you don't, have someone there to clean up after you.
Yep. All your windows get broken.
all the windows are broken and everything.
I love just the design of Dooku's office having been destroyed. I do think that's cool. It also made me, mildly sad because I really liked that office. So toward the end, we're coming up on the end of episode 1 here, and I do want to say that my observation is that really these are Tech, Omega, and Echo's episodes, and the banter between the three of them is the highlight of the episode for me. Specifically, I noted where Omega spends the entire episode basically being tutored.
Right.
And she gets like lambasted by Tech for like not keeping up with her studies, even in the middle of a mission. And then she turns around, and when they're on the transport, it's Omega that has the idea to escape in the cargo container. And Tech is like, I'm so proud of you. Like, that was a nice little moment.
I liked it because, well, one, they set it up in the beginning, which was nice. But I also found interesting that like they even kind of call back to it in the end of the episode. So like in the first bit, she essentially is the catalyst that saves them from the crabs, right? Like she kind of is the quote unquote backup that helps them escape for a second so that they can get out. And then again here, she is also, oh, well, I was studying these things that you made me study. So now I know what kind of ship this is. And I know that we can escape if we do this or whatever, So she's proving like why she's an asset to the team, I guess, throughout this whole episode. And then we'll see, obviously, in the end of the second episode, why she's wrong about how she views herself, like as a burden to them. And so,
yeah, and I think something interesting they've done with this episode that I really love. The first season really leaned really heavily on the relationship between Omega and Hunter and Omega and Wrecker. And this 2 episodes were so much about the relationship between Omega and Tech and Omega and Echo.
Right.
And I think them slowing down, there is a flip side to that, and we'll get to it when we get to what I disliked about episode 2, but them pairing those characters up really lets them shine in a way they didn't in season 1. And I really love that. Of course, Count Dooku has a secret elevator that leads to a hangar
Sure.
that he can escape. I thought it was going to lead them to like some crazy Sith shrine or something, or Dooku's private meditation chamber or something beneath his off. No, it's a secret hangar so he can get the fuck out.
Classic Sith move.
Well, so my mutual on Twitter, at Liam Likes SW, did point out to me, we were discussing the episode, and he pointed out to me that there is an episode of Clone Wars where Anakin and Obi-Wan are attempting to capture Dooku aboard a separatist ship. And he's in like a meditation room. And when they try to capture him, he has like a secret slide that slides him down out of this meditation room straight to the hangar so he can escape. And so Liam's point was, oh, this was a thing that Count Dooku does.
Yeah, he just
he
likes
always
to do
has
that,
some
yeah.
sort of escape tunnel that he can get the fuck out of any situation. I'm like, I want a secret escape tunnel where I can get the fuck out of any
I like that.
situation that I don't like.
He seems like a classic gay that just has to have always has an
That
exit.
exactly. That man is an older gay man who always
Yep.
has his exits figured from any given situation.
That's exactly what they were trying to
Knows
do
where the
here.
exit is. Well, that was the end of my my notes on episode 1. Bradley, did you have anything on episode 1 you really wanted to go over?
No, that's pretty much it. I didn't really like how they ended the episode on a quote cliffhanger. I was
Yeah,
like,
it
what?
it makes me feel like these were not written to be 13 weeks. That it was
Yeah,
written to it was written to be it was written to be 16 weeks.
yeah, it was weird because, well, okay, here's my thing about the cliffhanger. I hate when you do this with our main characters because in what reality are 3 of our main characters trapped in a container that's falling from the sky, and they're like, oh no, they're gonna die. Like they're clearly not gonna die. Like there's no stakes here. Like I genuinely was like, there's nothing here that can happen that I'm like gonna be surprised about.
That it's like, no, this kid show for children is not going to immediately kill 3 of the main characters at the start of its 2nd season.
Right.
I didn't like it because it felt like a cliffhanger that should have gone for a week. And then they were like, oh, here's another episode, because
Yeah.
rather like any serialized kid show, the cliffhanger is immediately resolved right into the 2nd episode. I think we're doing good on time, Bradley. You want to make this one extra long episode and just plow through the rest of it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. However, you know what will never end you on a cliffhanger, Bradley? The Anchor advertisement that's going to play before we start episode 2. The Anchor advertisement will not leave you on a cliffhanger at the end of it. It will leave you narratively satisfied from beginning to end.
Phone case. I'll be like, guys, I just did my own fucking phone case. It's great. Like, or whatever. You know, I'm just making up a dumb thing.
I will personally. I'm a whore. I'm a capitalist whore. If you pay me, I will gladly sacrifice my principles for money.
Although we will be very specific.
I do it every day when I go to work for a financial institution.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to sell my soul and be like, this episode is brought to you by Jungle Juice, the only thing that's gonna get some pep in your step on the dance floor. I don't know, something like that.
This episode of Gold Squadron Gaze is sponsored by the concept of a mimosa. The concept of a mimosa. The only thing that will get you out of bed on a Sunday morning. Oh, I'm going to hell.
So episode 2.
Episode 2. You want to do one thing we liked and one thing we didn't about episode 2?
Yeah. First of all, episode 2, Ruins of War. The batch must decide who to trust as they plan their escape. Yes, please, Charles, tell me one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you did.
I really, really liked the ending confrontation scene overall. I thought it was a lot smaller scale and a lot quieter with just a couple of clones, but because of that, it felt more tense. Like there's a tendency of the show to do action scenes where bigger equals better, but the bit where Tech is fighting like just a couple of clone troopers off by himself, the way it's shot and the way that the stakes are set up and the way it's lit makes it so fucking tense.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is some of the best action the show has done. And it's just 2 guys shooting at each other. And like, we'll get to it when we get to it, but I absolutely loved that. One thing I didn't like. So I mentioned how this is really Tech and Echo and Omega's episode. Yeah, the episode has no fucking idea what to do with Hunter and Wrecker.
The
It
whole time.
basically just sends them off. Like, you'll see, basically none of my notes are about them because it just sends them off to run around, get chased by clone troopers, mess with tanks. Neither of the characters goes through any growth. Neither of the characters learns anything new. Neither of the characters has any interaction with each other that's particularly deep or meaningful. They're just kind of moved around so that we can leave Tech and Echo and Omega by themselves. Which, honestly, if it were me and I was writing this episode, I would have cut the whole Hunter and Omega and Wrecker thing entirely. And I would have had them just like, when they escape from the castle, I would have had us have no idea what happened to them.
You're right. They should have just showed up at the Marauder. Like, they've been
They
like,
should have
oh,
just
we're
showed up at the
here.
last
Like,
minute
yeah.
at the Marauder.
Yep.
Is it trite? Yes, but it gives us more time to spend with Tech and Omega and Echo, which
Yeah.
is all the really interesting stuff in this episode. What about you, Bradley? One thing you liked and one thing you did not.
I mean, I basically have the same thing. Like, I agree. I think that the Hunter Wrecker storyline was moot point. Like, you could have taken all their scenes and cut them together in a slightly longer scene and then been like, it has the same effect as if it was like interdispersed throughout the episode. I think the only reason they did that was just to semi break up the Team Omega stuff. Like, it was just weird why it was even there. And then I really liked, though, just Rampart being sassy at the end. He's my, I think he's my new fave. I kind of live for him. He was great.
Well, yeah, we'll get to Rampart when we get to Rampart.
Yeah.
But I quite enjoyed him in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the opening shot of episode 2 where it opens on the castle and it slowly pans up and the kid crates are coming down out of the sky.
Free falling out of the sky.
It's a beautiful shot. Look, the animation in season 2 is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll give it the.
Like, it's so good. I also like Echo, like, going out of his way to protect Omega during the crash. I thought that was very, very cool. I also like that Tech gets his fucking leg broken in it. Now, the severity of this break seems to fluctuate from scene to scene. Sometimes he only needs a minor bit of support. Sometimes he can barely walk. Like,
and sometimes he just collapses from exhaustion. And
sometimes he just collapses. And I'm like,
you're like, what the hell?
Please
Yeah.
decide how injured he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say this episode was given to the interns, but like
I hate that phrase.
I know, but
I really do. For me, it more seems like this episode could have used maybe 1 or 2 more drafts.
You know what? That's a better way to put it. I think
a better way to put it.
This seems like
it's
a very
episode
first or second draft. Like, it doesn't seem like, yeah.
Like, it's competently written, but it needed another draft or 2 to iron out some of these kinks. And like, 2, part of it's the animation thing of sometimes he's animated as walking basically okay if he's being supported. And sometimes he's walking like he can't even put pressure on his leg, which would be the more accurate. But I do like they gave him an injury because that's going to increase the narrative tension. We also don't see our heroes get injured very often, especially in an animated show like this. They're being tossed around, things that would like normally break somebody's back. They're just sort of doing these landings so it was really great to see somebody get injured. It's just, it was wildly inconsistent on how injured Tech actually is. We have an introduction of a new character for this episode. Tech and Echo and Omega are discovered by a survivor of the bombardment named Romar Adel. Do you want to tell us a little about who's playing Romar Adel?
Absolutely. He is being played by Hector Elizondo.
We apologize about these names.
Hopefully I said that right.
Elizondo, I think, is how you say it.
Elizondo. Yeah, that sounds right.
Once again, we are extremely sorry about our pronunciation of all names. We can't pronounce any of them.
I know him best from The Princess Diaries. He plays Joe, the security guard. And he has also done voice work for Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, which we did say we would look out for that stuff. He was Wan Shi Tong, the owl spirit of knowledge, in both shows. So I thought that was fun that he kind of comes in this. One, because we did say let's look out for Avatar Korra stuff, because we thought that was something that might come up, and it sure as shit did in the second episode. So there you go.
He was also in the Lego Batman movie as the voice of Jim Gordon. I'm just scrolling through. The man has 159 acting credits.
Right.
So he's one of those that's just
He's one
he's
of
been in a
those.
lot of things you remember watching as a kid. Let's put it that way. He was in a lot of things that you remember watching as a kid, if you are around my age. He was also in Pretty Woman as
Hmm.
Barney Thompson.
You know
So
what?
that's
Maybe they
cool.
should have done more of a Pretty Woman plot line for this episode then, because that would have been that would have been a better story, honestly.
The Bad Batch gets wrapped up in a Pretty Woman
I
storyline.
mean, why not? Like, at this point, isn't also Pretty Woman is now under or actually has always been under the Disney label because I think it was produced by Buena Vista or something. So
I'm
it's
pretty sure, Bradley, that
Pretty Woman is a Disney movie.
there might be some issues reconciling the plot of Pretty Woman with the fact that this show is literally for children.
I disagree. I feel like they just
I
are
don't
not
know.
brave enough to do it yet.
I saw the Zygeria art in Clone Wars. I know what they're prepared to do.
Yeah, come on. You can't do a Pretty Woman arc, but you can do a bunch of other, like, a little more intensive things in Clone Wars. Come on.
There's so they have a conversation with Romar at his like hut thing,
Hmm.
and he talks about how no, it wasn't just other worlds that Dooku plundered, that he sort of started right in Sereno, which is really heartbreaking and interesting because we see that in Dooku Jedi Lost by Kevin Scott, the reason Dooku leaves the Order is basically because he cares a lot about Sereno and he wants to make life better for the people of Sereno. So for him to eventually be lured down to the dark side and turn around and exploit them, that's an interesting arc for the character to go on.
Yeah, because especially since we just saw in Tales of the Jedi, he literally spent a whole entire episode trying to prevent a rogue senator from doing the exact same thing to his own people, and he was about to kill him for it.
Yep.
So it's very interesting that he turned around and did the same fucking thing to his own people.
Yep. Gazy not into the abyss or whatever. Or he who fights monsters is the better term, I think. He who
There you
fights
go.
monsters is destined to become one,
There
which
you go.
is Dooku has gotten so much more interesting development over the past couple of years. He's a really fascinating character in terms of where political idealism can go wrong. And I think it's interesting to compare him to a character like Padme or Mon Mothma or Bail Organa. I've been talking a lot about Mon Mothma recently for reasons I'm not sure I can announce yet. But maybe by the time this episode comes out, people will know why. But I think it's interesting to compare him with other political figures in the Star Wars universe on that front.
Yep.
And just like, how did his political idealism end up leading him down a very, very dark path? I like how Echo continues to talk to Omega in soldier terms.
Just
stick to the mission. Your
Yep.
mission is to do this. And so she goes and does it. I do like that. But it actually continues on to the next little scene where she goes down and she finds this toy. And she's like, oh, are there jewels inside it? And the dude's like, no, it's glass. It's a toy. Do you know what a toy is?
Yeah, he's like, have you never played with toys, kid?
No, she
has
hasn't.
not. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Omega's never had a childhood.
Yeah.
She grew up with Nala Se in her lab, and when she joined up with the Bad Batch, they've obviously not been able to give her a normal childhood. So her first thought with this thing isn't, oh, it's a toy. It's, oh, it's part of the mission, which I think is incredibly heartbreaking. I think it's interesting. There's a nice little moment with Tech where the guy's basically like, I have a hard drive full of like part of a library or something of my people's stuff. And Tech is like, oh, it's a separatist archive. He's like, dude, this was a planet before the separatists happened.
Yeah, he's like, it's interesting. We can have our own history and stuff before the war.
Tech never thought of the separatists as people.
Well, yeah, because he wasn't born before the war started. So.
Well, they're just the enemy. They're just the guy that he's conditioned to fight. And I really love that they gave him this little moment of realizing, oh, the Serenians are actually people with a culture.
Yeah, let me help you out by fixing your little space cube thing. Yeah.
Which is cool. It's a great moment. Tech has the best stuff in these two episodes. Like, these are Tech episodes, which there weren't really in season 1.
And I don't know if that's just a note that they took from the first season. Like, maybe there's some criticism there of like, we didn't really focus too much on Tech and Echo that much in the previous season. They got the one episode for Echo, but other than that, it was kind of like they're essentially relegated to side characters in the first season, and in this one it looks like at least they're trying to make all of the characters kind of have their moments in the show,
right?
Which is nice.
Wrecker's back to being comic relief again, but like Wrecker's really good at being comic relief. You don't have to do a whole lot with Wrecker. Even Hunter gets his little moments at the beginning of episode 1 where we see that where he's at. Speaking of Wrecker and Hunter, I want to bring up the canon thing. So Wrecker gets a canon cannon, like a
Okay.
hand cannon, and is wildly inconsistent about where he's using it. Like at one point he uses it to take down a fighter and it crashes and kills the pilot, but then like
Right.
he's shooting it at the clones. Like they're shooting stun blasts and fucking like these missile like thing
Yeah,
blasts that
it,
he's
it
shooting.
makes no
And then
sense.
like later on we'll see that, oh no, he's actually shooting like the walls of the past to try to block the clones off non-lethally, but like one of the clones would have been crushed if they hadn't grabbed. It's like it's not 100% sure whether or not it just wants Wrecker to go crazy with this, or whether or not it's like, oh, he's being very careful and methodical.
But that's my issue with this, and the same thing I had my problem was with Rebels essentially, which was, it's okay to kill people as long as they're flying a plane or something, because we don't have to see them explode into nothingness. Like that, you don't see the death. So I guess here it's like, okay, it's okay if I accidentally kill them by falling rubble, or accidentally kill them by, shooting them with a laser. Like I don't know. It does it's
Well, it's the inconsistency for me, because
yeah.
I think it's always morally acceptable to shoot fascists.
Yeah.
I think that's good and correct, and you should do that. So, like the rebels, like shooting stormtroopers when they are established to be perfectly fine with shooting stormtroopers, it is really funny when a 15-year-old kid is doing it, because it is like, how many people is this child murdering? But
Right.
they are fascists, so it is morally acceptable to kill them. The thing is that the Bad Batch is inconsistent about when the Bad Batch specifically will injure clones.
Right.
And I liked that the first season they kind of had the stun blast, except when Omega was in danger on Braca, that they switched to the regular blaster bolts. However, in this season, it's inconsistent in that sometimes they're using the stun bolts, and then sometimes Wrecker is blowing them up with a cannon. And
Well, yeah, and then even Omega with her bow, like, is her energy bow lethal, or can she turn it down so that it's not lethal? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's that
it
use
feels
there?
like
Like,
they're trying too hard with this particular aspect of the design and the strategy, and I don't know if it's really working to convey the message that I think the directors
right.
want it to convey. So Tech is a fucking badass, apparently.
He holds his own a little bit in this
He's
episode.
broken leg, stuck behind a tree. He like beats a dude to death, or beats him and takes his gun and shoots him. Like, sir, where did this come from?
You know what? Season 2 said, you need to do more, sir. You're not doing enough by just fixing ships and plotting courses and things. So we
Then
need
they
you
had them do
to.
all the things. Well, it's easy to forget that Tech gets put into combat for a reason. Tech is a
Yeah,
very formidable fighter.
he has to be, which they do think they forget that a lot of the time, where it's like all of these guys should be proficient in combat because they are soldiers still. Just because he's a smart soldier doesn't mean he's has to
He's
not
a
be good at
soldier.
fighting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really loved that. I loved the whole fight on the cliff thing. I loved how tense it was. I love the
Mhm.
choreography using the tree, because there's a movie I really love. Oh, Free Fire, I think is the name of the movie. Brie Larson's in it.
Okay.
And it is an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half movie. It is nothing but a shootout in like an abandoned warehouse. That's it. That's the movie.
Okay. Okay.
Because there's the initial, it's basically several groups come together for a weapons deal. The deal goes south, everybody pulls guns, and they start shooting at each other. And after the initial volley of shots, the entire rest of the movie is everybody's like in cover. Like it becomes a game of like moving from cover to cover, trying to avoid getting shot. You're trying to talk to everybody. You're trying to work out alliances. You're making deals, all of this. And like, it's really interesting. I like it when at shootout scenes like this, realize that it isn't just like two guys standing there shooting at each other. Like there's movement and hiding and strategizing and all of that. And Tech does feel like he's doing that in this scene where he's behind the tree. He can't do his normal jumping around like a badass thing because his leg is broken, which is why I love they broke his leg. His leg is broken. He can't just jump around like a badass. He has to be really strategic and really careful. And I think that almost makes the scene more intense than any of the just let's shoot a thing with a cannon action scenes in the rest of the episode. And I do still like the action.
Well, I like what they do because they essentially tied his arm behind his back, right? But then, or his leg, I guess, in this situation. But also he's also got his one arm tied behind the back anyway because they have to do the whole non-lethal bullshit thing too, right? So it's kind of like he's double like not allowed to be proficient, but he also is at the same time. It's really interesting how he's navigating this problem that he's having. But then turns around and takes out a gunship with a cannon. So I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, it is still the Bad Batch.
I know,
It is
but
still the
yeah.
Bad Batch. We get a lovely little scene with Omega kind of being the heart of the team again on the Marauder, and Echo's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, if we hadn't come back for you, we'd be working for the Empire. You changed our lives. Very, we love you. You're our child, our
Yeah.
adoptive child that we
You're our
have." And
adopted child, even though you're our technically older sister.
technically, you're our
So,
older sister. Yeah.
yeah, you're our younger, but born before us sister who we adopted as our daughter.
Okay, let's talk about the Rampart scene.
Yes, please. Oh my God.
So question one, what the fuck did Crosshair put in his Camino report?
So I was under the
It's
impression that not Captain Wilka, Rampart doesn't think that even Crosshair's alive.
Well, we know Crosshair's back with the Empire because we see.
No, we don't.
Oh, I wonder if that's going to be the next episode.
Well, that's what I was thinking
I wonder if
because
they never went back for Crosshair.
right, because they told Crosshair at the end of the first season, they're like, the Empire left you for dead, dude. Like they were blowing up Camino because they thought you were in there.
Well, we presumably like scout ships were going to come and pick him up. What if they never picked him up?
Well, that's what I'm thinking maybe happened.
I
Like
think
maybe
you might be
Crosshair is just kind of rogue right now.
You might have been completely right in
I,
saying that the solitary clone refers to Crosshair.
it
If we're
may
going to have an
be.
episode of Castaway with Crosshair on Camino,
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, we don't know. Like obviously, I don't know, but
oh, that would be
as far,
so good. They're not going to do it because it'd be good, but that'd be so good.
right. I mean, as far as we know, like, well, let's just ignore the Crosshair stuff for now because we don't really know. We're just speculating at this point. But we do know that Rampart knows that Clone Force 99 is quote unquote dead because they blew up Camino. So as far as he knows, at least they are dead. But now he knows that they're not. So that's annoying because he's like, I'm hiding this from the Emperor because I don't want, or hiding this from Tarkin because he's
It's
like, I don't.
Tarkin. He's hiding it from Tarkin because
Yeah, he's
Tarkin
like,
will
I don't want him to
fucking
be
murder
mean to
him.
me.
I also love how Rampart apparently while we were on break from the Bad Batch, Rampart watched Andor and specifically watched the ISB scenes in Andor and was like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to be doing it. Okay, no, I get this. I'll just shoot the guy and falsify the report. It's
Oh
fine.
no, it was great. Actually, I really liked how he did it too, because he was just like, "Ooh, sorry, like this is just gonna happen," and then he just straight up shoots him, and he's just like, and he just falls over the edge. But then now I'm wondering, like, what are the rest of the clone troopers gonna be like? Whatever happened to the captain? I don't know. Like they just told us to leave.
He tripped and fell down the
He-
stairs. I don't know. I also love somebody pointed out to me, and I went back and I made a note of it because it 100% accurate. Rampart looks directly at the camera in the final shot. He kind of looks left, he looks right, and then he looks directly at the camera. It's really creepy. It's so unsettling. All right, that's all my notes.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much more
There's
to the
not
season or
much
for
to
the
these
show
two
because
episodes.
they didn't really set up anything other than the fact that Rampart knows that they're alive. Like, I really don't know what else like they've set up other than like, oh, now he's like, I gotta take them out. Like, that's really all they're setting up, which is the same plot of the first season that they had to take them out. Like, so I don't really know what the show is trying to do here because they haven't set up the second season arc of whatever that may be yet. Like,
if you showed me these two episodes and asked me to guess where they were in the season, I would have put them at 1/3 or 2/3 of the way through.
yeah.
I would not have called them a season premiere. They're fine episodes. They have some really good stuff with Tech and Echo and Omega. There's some fantastic action. But it lacks the punch of something like Aftermath or the Braca art or the Camino art
Right.
in the first season. It really, as two episodes, they're good. As a season opener, I feel like we're opening on a bit of a weak foot.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this I guess my final thoughts are I hope that this season picks up the pace next week, because otherwise you're gonna lose people. Because this episode didn't really, or these first two episodes together didn't really punch us like enough. Like I felt like it was like a soft like tap. It was kind of like, okay, they're back to their old shenanigans kind of thing. Like I needed them to do something significant to push the show forward, the plot forward, because it just did not do it for me. And I'm hoping episode 3 or episode 4, like we're really starting to pick up the pace, but I'm worried that, we're not really going to get any of that good plot until the next double episode, because I feel like those are when supposedly the plot is amazing, because it's going on to the next episode because you need another one right away.
Yeah, and my final thoughts are kind of, I mean, everything that I basically said. It's a good series of episodes and has a lot of good moments, and I loved being back on Sereno and seeing what happened to Sereno after the Clone Wars. But as far as the season opener, it kind of was kind of a wet squelch of a foot forward, into the season. I know that cool stuff is coming because I've seen the trailer. I know Gunji's coming. I know Palpatine is coming. I know Cody is coming. But there's only so long you can sustain me on the promise of it will get good eventually. And hopefully it gets good sooner rather than later. The next episode or two could really kick it up and be really good. But compared to like the first season where we opened with Aftermath and then we were right into the really emotional Cutlet Queen episode, and we didn't slow down till episode 3. And episode 3 decided to get really dark, and like it was continuing. It did a good job of hooking us in. This season, the opener kind of assumes that you're coming off the back of the first season. And it does make it a little weak for me. I would have liked to see more of the consequences of Camino. I would have liked to see a bit of a world state change, just moving on down the line. But we'll see. We'll see where the season goes. I don't want to sound like, I hated this episode. I didn't. I thought it was, good. There just wasn't much there.
Right.
It's a bit like a sandwich to me, like just a sandwich I made myself for lunch with ham and cheese and all that on it. I mean, it's a good sandwich, but it's not really like a meal that I would use to start or end my day. So, alrighty, well, next week we'll be doing more Bad Batch. I guess we don't really have to talk about that. I forgot, how do we end a show when we're covering something that's not Andor? Do we just run I think we just run the socials. Bradley, run the socials.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gaze. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gaze.
I think you've been watching a little too much Ratatouille lately. That's why you're.
Why did you default? What, Ratatouille? Really?
That's the only Frenchman you know. Come on.
That is true. That is the only French movie I can think of off the top of my head.
It's the only one I can think of for sure.